Welcome. If you click on this audiobook, some part of you is likely tired in a way that sleep hasn't fixed. Not just physically exhausted. Not just in need of a break. Maybe you're deeply exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that seeps into your thoughts, mood, motivation, body, and even your sense of self. The kind of exhaustion that makes small things feel burdensome and happiness seem out of reach. It makes you wonder what happened to the version of yourself that used to feel more alive. If that's where you are, take a breath. You're in the right place. This isn't a book about pretending everything is okay. It isn't a book about putting on a positive front. It's not about fixing burnout with a bubble bath, a gratitude list, or a perfect morning routine. This book is about reconnecting with yourself. It helps you see burnout for what it truly is. It encourages listening to the signals your body and mind send. It focuses on rebuilding your life in a way that boosts your energy rather than depletes it. Because burnout is not just tiredness, it is not laziness, it is not a weakness. It is a warning, a message, a threshold, a moment when your body, your emotions, your nervous system, and your spirit all start to say the same thing. We cannot keep living like this. And yet, there is good news within that truth. Because if burnout is a signal, then it is also a form of information. And if it is information, then healing can happen, not overnight. Not through force, not by becoming a different person, but by learning to honor what is real. This audiobook takes you through an 8-step journey, a path from awareness to boundaries, from regulation to mental clarity, from physical restoration to joy, and from life redesign to empowerment. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be whole. You're here to remember what sustainability feels like. You're here to reclaim energy, purpose, peace, and self-trust. Wherever you're listening from, your room, your car, during a walk, early in the morning, or late at night, this is more than just information. Let it become a conversation. Let it be a return. Let it serve as a companion for the part of you ready to move beyond survival and start healing. Take another deep breath, and let's get started. Crushing burnout forever starts here. Burnout often arrives quietly. It rarely manifests with a single dramatic moment at first. Instead, it builds up in small layers, slightly more pressure, slightly less rest, slightly more overthinking, slightly more emotional labor, and slightly more self-neglect. Before long, what once felt manageable now seems impossible. You might wake up feeling already exhausted. You might stare at your screen and watch your focus fade away. You might feel more irritated than usual, less patient, less creative, and less hopeful. You might realize that even when you rest, you don't feel truly refreshed. You might see that the life you've worked so hard to build is starting to feel like a prison you are trapped inside. That isn't failure, that's burnout. And one of the most important truths in this book is this: burnout is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that something in your current way of living is no longer sustainable. This matters because too many people misunderstand burnout. They label themselves as lazy, undisciplined, ungrateful, unmotivated, or overly sensitive. However, these labels do not reveal the truth. The reality is that chronic stress changes the way you think, feel, and function. It's also true that overextension has serious consequences. Ultimately, a life built on endless output leaves the person trying to sustain it feeling empty. This book is for those who keep going even when they are already exhausted. The reliable one, the high achiever, the caretaker, the creative who has lost their spark, the professional who can't recall the last time work felt meaningful, the dreamer who is secretly drained by their dreams. If that describes you, this audiobook offers a different path. Not a fantasy or dramatic escape, but a real, practical, and compassionate one. You don't have to throw away your whole life. You don't need to give up on being ambitious. You don't have to retreat to a cabin in the woods. You need a more honest relationship with your body, your mind, your energy, your values, and your limits. That is what the 8-step framework in this book provides. It begins with awareness because healing starts when you can name what's wrong. Then, boundaries, because you need to stop allowing unlimited access to what drains you. Next, nervous system regulation, because burnout resides in the body, not just the mind. Then, mental detox, because the inner critic can secretly drive exhaustion. After that, energy is reset because physical restoration is important. Then, joy and purpose, because healing isn't just about easing pain, it's also about reconnecting with what gives life meaning. Next, life design, because recovery improves when your daily routine supports your well-being. And finally, empowerment, because you're not just healing from burnout, you're becoming someone who can protect your life from it. This isn't a quick fix, it's a return to alignment. As you listen, don't pressure yourself to absorb everything all at once. Remember, you're not taking an exam, you're receiving support. Let what lands, land. Let what stirs you, stir you. And let what challenges you do so gently. Most importantly, let this be the moment you stop minimizing your exhaustion. You don't need to earn the right to admit you're tired. You don't have to wait until you collapse. You don't have to prove that things are bad enough before you begin caring for yourself. You may start now. Wake up to burnout. The first step in overcoming burnout isn't fixing it, it's recognizing it. That sounds simple, but it isn't always easy. Many people have become so accustomed to burnout that they no longer see it. They call it adulthood, ambition, responsibility, a busy season, or just life. But burnout is more than just stress. Stress says, there is too much on my plate. Burnout says, I do not even know whether I care anymore. Stress can feel intense but temporary. Burnout lingers. It drains motivation. It flattens joy. It blurs identity. It makes simple things feel oddly difficult. Burnout usually develops in stages. First, there is overload. You're still functioning well, maybe even excelling. You're busy, productive, responsive, and possibly praised for your workload. But the pressure keeps increasing. Rest begins to decline. Your body sends early warning signs. Your sleep becomes less restful. Your mind remains alert. You tell yourself you can handle it. You motivate yourself to push harder. Then comes resistance. Now your system starts to push back. You feel more irritable, less inspired, and more forgetful. You might begin procrastinating on tasks you once managed easily. Your body feels heavier, and your patience wears thin. You experience tiredness that rest alone doesn't fully relieve. Still, you may tell yourself it's just temporary and keep trying to outrun it. And then for some comes collapse. This happens when the cost becomes impossible to ignore. Tasks seem overwhelming. Emotions feel either dull or intense. Your focus breaks down. Your body may start faltering more visibly through illness, pain, panic, or exhaustion that no longer responds to motivation. This is why awareness matters, because healing becomes easier when you stop dismissing early signs. One of the quietest ways we hurt ourselves is through comparison. You might think that others have it worse. You might think I should be grateful. You might think I don't have the right to call this burnout. But comparison doesn't restore your energy. It only deepens your silence. If you feel disconnected from joy, that matters. If you dread your responsibilities, that matters. If your body constantly feels wired or flat, that matters. If you have become someone who is always pushing but rarely feels present, that matters. There is power in saying, I am burned out. Not because the phrase solves everything, but because it replaces blame with clarity. It allows you to stop calling yourself lazy when you are depleted. It helps you stop calling yourself weak when you feel overwhelmed. It enables you to shift from shame to understanding. Once you understand what is happening, you can start asking better questions. Where is my energy going? What am I constantly tolerating? Which parts of my life feel like pressure? Which parts feel like peace? What does my inner voice sound like these days? What am I carrying that no one sees? Burnout is not your identity. It is feedback, and feedback is useful. It shows you where your life might be out of balance. It indicates where your body has gone too long without safety. It reveals where your needs have been hidden beneath others' expectations. This chapter urges you to stop focusing solely on wellness and instead start telling the truth. That truth might be messy, uncomfortable, or filled with grief. Recognizing burnout often means admitting that what you've called success has come at a cost. But truth remains the first step toward healing. If this chapter awakens something in you, let it. Allow yourself to stop minimizing your exhaustion. Use it as an invitation to be honest, because there is no shame in burning out. There is wisdom in awakening. Reclaim your boundaries. Once you recognize burnout, the next question is unavoidable. What is draining me? And why does it still have so much access to me? This is where boundaries become part of the story. For many, boundaries seem more difficult than they truly are. They may sound harsh, cold, unkind, or selfish. But healthy boundaries aren't walls. They're oxygen. They're structured. They're protective. They're one of the clearest ways to remind yourself, I matter too. Burnout flourishes when everything can reach you. Each request, each text, every expectation, every crisis, every interruption, every emotional demand. When your time, energy, and attention are always available, your nervous system never fully relaxes. Your life becomes reactive. You become susceptible to exhaustion. Many people struggle with boundaries, not because they don't understand them in theory, but because they are afraid of what boundaries might cost. They worry about disappointing others. They fear judgment. They worry about conflict. They worry about missing out. They worry about being seen as difficult. They fear that if they stop overgiving, they will no longer be loved, valued, or needed. That is why boundary work is more than just practical. It's emotional. It challenges you to confront old conditions and encourages you to question the belief that your value depends on how available you are. It also urges you to trust that saying no does not make you unlovable. Every time you say no to something that doesn't match your energy, you reinforce your own sustainability. Each time you pause before agreeing, you strengthen self-trust. When you stop explaining your limits, you remind yourself that your needs don't require a courtroom defense. Sometimes boundaries seem straightforward. That won't work for me. I am at capacity and cannot commit to that right now. I need rest and am unavailable tonight. I will get back to you tomorrow. The language is often simple. What's more challenging is tolerating the discomfort that might follow. Someone might not like your limit. Someone might be surprised. Someone may prefer the version of you that always overextends. But other people's discomfort isn't automatically proof that you did something wrong. Sometimes it simply shows that the pattern has shifted. Boundaries are not only verbal but also behavioral. They encompass how you manage your calendar, your phone, your evenings, your mornings, your workday, your digital life, and your emotional labor. Maybe your first boundary is not checking emails after dinner. Maybe it's not replying to messages the instant they arrive. Maybe it's carving out 1 hour in the morning before the world starts demanding things from you. Perhaps it's skipping some events. Maybe it's not rescuing everyone from every problem. Maybe it's not saying yes while resentment quietly grows inside. You don't need perfect boundaries, just honest ones. And honesty begins with this question. What has been hurting me that I keep letting in under the guise of being good, helpful, loyal, productive, or easy to love? There is no recovery from burnout without boundaries. Healing can't occur in the same environment that caused your wounds. You can't restore your energy while constantly draining it. You can't find peace if you prioritize everyone else's comfort over your own. Boundaries are not punishment. They are not rejected. They are not cruel. They are acts of care, care with intention, wisdom, and self-respect. Begin with one protected hour. Turn down one invitation. Postpone one response. Say one genuine sentence. Offer one fewer apology. Make one small decision to prioritize your peace over automatic compliance. That's how the bleeding begins to stop. Reset your nervous system. Many people recognize their burnout mentally, but still feel physically stuck in it. They know they need rest, to slow down, and to make changes. However, their body remains tense, restless, wired, numb, or exhausted. That's because burnout isn't just in your mind, it lives in your nervous system. When stress becomes chronic, the body stops seeing pressure as temporary. It shifts to prioritizing survival. Your heart may race more easily. Your breath may become shallow. Your muscles may stay tense. Your digestion might be affected. Your sleep may become lighter. Your mind might stay hyper alert even during safe moments. In a balanced system, the body switches between activation and recovery. You get ready to handle a challenge, then relax again. You respond, then pause. But with burnout, that reset often doesn't happen fully. The body starts acting as if the emergency is never truly over. This is why simple rest doesn't always feel sufficient. Because the body may no longer know how to relax genuinely, you can lie down and still feel anxious. You can go on vacation and still feel restless. You can sleep and still wake up exhausted. Recovery, then, is not just about taking time off. It is about relearning safety. It is about helping your nervous system trust that it doesn't always need to stay armed. This might seem abstract, but it's very tangible. It happens through repeated signals of patience, consistency, and care. By breathing more deeply, by eating more mindfully, by creating pauses before reacting, by moving your body gently, by giving yourself transitions between tasks, reducing sensory overload when possible, and creating moments that remind your body it is safe enough to soften. This chapter introduces you to nervous system hygiene, not as just another task to complete, but as a daily habit to promote calmness. It includes taking a few slow breaths before grabbing your phone, doing a quick body check-in during a stressful day, pausing after an argument, taking a walk without multitasking, stretching between meetings, placing a hand on your heart, and extending your exhale for a quieter evening. Small practices matter because repetition teaches the body what philosophy cannot. You may understand safety intellectually, but your body learns safety through experience. Each time you stop and breathe instead of overriding yourself, you send a signal. Each time you choose a softer pace where possible, you send a signal. Each time you notice tension without judging it, you send a signal. Healing your nervous system doesn't require you to become a wellness expert. It involves becoming more responsive to yourself, less abandonment, less force, less obsession with speed at all costs. And there is truly hope here. A body that has learned to deal with chronic stress can also learn to find calm. A system that has been practicing urgency can start practicing peace. Not perfectly, not immediately, but consistently, one breath at a time, one pause at a time, one moment of listening at a time. The goal isn't to eliminate all stress from life. Instead, it's to stop living as if stress is the only state your body is permitted to experience. Detox your mind. Burnout isn't only physical exhaustion, it's also mental stress. One of the most exhausting parts of burnout is the inner critic. That voice might sound familiar. You need to do more. You're falling behind. You're too slow. You should handle this better. Everyone else seems fine. You can't rest yet. You haven't earned it. When that voice has been there for years, it can begin to sound like the truth. But often, it's not truly the truth. It's conditioning. It's fear. It's a survival tactic formed by old expectations, perfectionism, people-pleasing, or environments where worth is tied to performance. Many people secretly believe that self-criticism keeps them sharp, that harshness drives productivity, and that pressure leads to success. But burnout reveals the true cost of that deal. While self-attack might produce results temporarily, it also causes anxiety, rigidity, shame, and emotional exhaustion. It may keep you moving, but it rarely allows you to feel safe. Chronic stress changes how you think. The brain becomes more focused on threats. You might find yourself catastrophizing more easily. A delay may seem like a disaster. A mistake feels like a failure of who you are. A tough day feels like proof that everything is falling apart. You could become more rigid, hopeless, and all or nothing. Everything appears either perfect or terrible. There's no room for nuance or being human. This chapter is about changing the channel. Not by forcing fake positivity, not by pretending difficult emotions don't exist, but by interrupting distorted thought loops and replacing them with something more honest, more grounded, and more compassionate. That might mean noticing the thought, "I am failing," and asking, "What is true?" Maybe the truth isn't that you're failing. Maybe it's that you're overloaded. You might be underrested. Perhaps you're trying to do too much with too little support. Maybe you need a boundary, not more shame. Compassion is not laziness. Compassion is clarity without cruelty. It says, "This is hard, and I am still worthy." It says, "I can be accountable without being abusive toward myself." It says, "I do not need to hate myself for healing." Perfectionism also needs to be questioned. It is rarely about achieving excellence. More often, it stems from fear of rejection, failure, losing value, or being seen as inadequate. Since perfection is unattainable, perfectionism leads to exhaustion. It forms a never-ending cycle: strive, criticize, overextend, fall short, and repeat. Burnout recovery requires a different internal culture, one where your mind is less like a battlefield and more like a place you can truly live in. One where your language toward yourself is less punishing and more supportive. One where thoughts are observed, not automatically obeyed. One where rest is not seen as a moral weakness. Start with small changes. Instead of saying, "I must," try saying, "I choose to." Instead of saying, "I am a mess," try saying, "I am having a hard moment." Instead of saying, "I should be over this by now," try saying, "Healing takes time." Instead of demanding perfect performance, ask what enough looks like today. That really matters. Burnout often happens in a life where enough never seems to arrive. No amount of effort feels like enough. No amount of success quiets the pressure. No amount of progress allows for rest. So, part of healing is rebuilding your relationship with enoughness, not as a resignation, but as liberation. You are allowed to be a work in progress. You are allowed to learn slowly. You are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to need support. You are allowed to be worthy before you prove another thing. This is how the mind begins to detox, not through force, but through gentleness that reveals the truth, through awareness that interrupts old stories, through repeated moments of choosing self-trust over self-attack. Reclaim your energy. Burnout changes how energy feels. For some, it's a roller coaster: coffee, push, crash, scroll, sugar, guilt, more pushing, then collapse. For others, it's a low, dull emptiness, a feeling that the tank is never quite full and that even rest can't restore what's lost. This chapter refocuses on the body. Healing burnout isn't just emotional or mental, it's physical too. Your body needs fuel, movement, sleep, and rhythm, not perfection, punishment, or another rigid standard. Support is essential. Food matters because a depleted body cannot think, feel, or function well for long. When meals are skipped, rushed, or replaced by stimulants, blood sugar becomes unstable. Energy levels spike and drop. Mood becomes more fragile. Focus becomes harder to maintain. The nervous system becomes more vulnerable. Therefore, nourishment becomes essential, not in a restrictive way, but in a restorative one. Eating enough, Eating regularly, including protein, fiber, healthy fats, and foods that stabilize rather than destabilize. Listening to hunger instead of ignoring it, and reducing the shame is often attached to food when life is already hard. Movement also matters, not because you need to earn rest or because your body must be optimized, but because movement can help release stress, improve circulation, support mood, and remind you that your body is more than just a machine for productivity. Burnout recovery requires a gentler approach to movement. Many people shift between extreme exercise, whether intense workouts, punishing routines, or complete avoidance. But healing often begins with something softer, a walk, stretching, gentle yoga, dancing in your room, or a few minutes of shaking off tension, not movement as pressure, but movement as care. Then there's sleep, perhaps the most obvious need, yet often the most disrupted. Burnout can make sleep feel paradoxical. You are exhausted all day, but wired at night. Your body is ready for rest, but your mind keeps spinning. Or you sleep, but wake up feeling as if your body never fully arrived there. That is why sleep recovery isn't just about going to bed earlier. It also includes helping the body prepare for rest, reducing stimulation at night, creating a calming routine, lowering light levels, and putting screens away earlier when possible, allowing the evening to become quieter. Teaching the body that night means softening, not adding more input. The deeper lesson here is that energy isn't something you command. It's something you cultivate through regular care, honoring basic needs, and respecting the body's rhythms instead of trying to dominate them. Burnout often teaches people to ignore their own needs, to work through hunger, to dismiss fatigue, to stay seated when their body needs movement, to keep pushing when every signal says stop. This chapter offers the opposite. Listen, respond, rebuild trust. As trust returns, energy gradually reappears, not all at once, but steadily. A brighter morning, a peaceful afternoon, a steadier mood, a body that no longer feels like an enemy. Reduced reliance on urgency, greater access to vitality. You don't have to be a perfect wellness person. You need to become someone who stops neglecting the body that has supported you through everything. Reconnect with joy and purpose. One of the saddest things burnout can steal is not just your stamina, but your sense of being alive, the spark, curiosity, and feeling of connection to what matters. The parts of life that once felt meaningful might start to seem distant. What once inspired you may now feel dull, and that can be frightening because it starts to seem personal. You might wonder if you have changed forever, if your passion is gone, or if you are becoming someone dull, numb, or disconnected. But burnout often masks joy rather than destroying it. Joy is hidden by pressure. Purpose is buried beneath endless demands. Creativity is pushed out by exhaustion. The self becomes harder to hear amid the noise of survival. This chapter is about reconnecting with that inner contact, not through a dramatic or sudden revelation, but through gentle reconnection, remembering what makes you feel like yourself, asking what lights you up, even just a little, noticing where warmth still exists, if you are still interested, still tender, which means purpose is often misunderstood as something big, a grand mission, a career title, or a world-changing moment. But sometimes purpose starts much smaller. It's in what energizes you, what feels honest, useful, beautiful, kind, and alive. It's what lets you contribute without disappearing. Similarly, joy is often seen as a luxury, something to experience after finishing work. But if the work never stops, joy is always pushed back. Living without joy can make burnout even worse. Therefore, part of healing is stopping the idea that joy is a reward. It becomes an essential part of the process. That might mean making space again for music, art, silence, nature, writing, cooking, play, laughter, and conversation that nourish rather than drain. It could be a morning walk, an evening ritual, or a hobby you've stopped allowing yourself to enjoy. Not because these things fix everything, but because they remind your system that life isn't only about work. When you begin reconnecting with joy, you might feel rusty, disconnected, or even guilty. That's okay. Sometimes healing joy means allowing yourself to be a beginner again. It involves doing something not because you're skilled at it, not because it produces results, and not because it's helpful to someone else, but because it brings a little life back into your system. And purpose deepens when you ask different questions. Not what impresses others, not what proves your worth, but what feels aligned. What matters to you now? What kind of life do you want your energy to serve? What genuine feeling in this season of who you are becoming? Burnout often raises these questions because old answers no longer fit. What once motivated you might not be enough anymore. What once felt successful may no longer seem sustainable. This isn't failure, it's evolution. A healed life isn't just about reducing stress. It's about discovering more meaning, authenticity, and moments that make you feel truly alive within your own journey. Let yourself find joy without needing an excuse. Redefine purpose without feeling pressured. Remember, a meaningful life is built not only on achievements, but also on inner alignment. Design a life that does not drain you. There comes a point in burnout recovery when insight alone isn't enough. You recognize what harms you, what exhausts you, and the patterns you follow. Now, the deeper work begins, reshaping the structure of your life. Because burnout often returns when the environment never changes, when the schedule still overwhelms, when technology still invades every hour, when relationships still expect endless access, when workload still ignores reality, and when the pace still leaves no room for being human. This chapter explores life design, which is the art of aligning your daily life with your well-being rather than constantly opposing it. That may start with time. How much of your week is already planned before it begins? How many items on your calendar create pressure instead of priorities? How often do you switch from one demand to another without any break? How often does your day belong to everyone except you? Margin, white space, and transition time all matter, because a life built without any recovery will continue to lead to exhaustion, regardless of how inspiring your goals are. Life design also involves being honest about your true capacity, not idealized capacity, not emergency capacity, real capacity. What can you maintain without later paying a steep price? What pace allows you to stay kind, clear, and connected? What kind of workload lets you be productive without constantly running on empty? Some things can't be changed overnight, and that's okay. This chapter isn't about fantasizing. It's about creating a plan. Where can you make things simpler? Where can you delegate tasks? Where can you use automation? Where can you remove obstacles? Where can you stop taking on burdens that aren't yours? And where can you make one brave change that your future self will thank you for? This is also where values become essential. If your daily life isn't aligned with your values, burnout gets worse. An unaligned life is exhausting. So ask yourself, what do I want my life to feel like? Not just what do I want to achieve, what do I want it to feel like when I wake up, work, eat, rest, connect, or wind down the day? Maybe your current values are peace, presence, honesty, spaciousness, creativity, health, simplicity, or connection. What would it look like to create a week that reflects those values not perfectly, but visibly? A sustainable life is rarely glamorous. It often results from simple, mindful choices: going to bed earlier, saying no more often, making smoother transitions, protecting your mornings, reducing digital noise, building more nourishing routines, setting more realistic expectations, honoring what your body has been trying to tell you. You're not behind because you need a compassionate pace. You're wise. You're no longer willing to sacrifice your energy for the appearance of having everything under control. That is not a weakness. That is maturity. This chapter urges you to stop creating a life that only looks successful on the surface. Instead, focus on building one that truly feels livable from the inside out. A life you can genuinely inhabit. A life your nervous system can trust. A life where your energy isn't always sacrificed at the altar of urgency. That's not settling. That's freedom. Become your own guide. The final stage of burnout recovery isn't perfection, it's empowerment. It's becoming someone who recognizes warning signs earlier, doesn't abandon themselves as quickly, and knows how to pause, repair, recalibrate, and start again. This matters because life will never be entirely stress-free. There will always be demanding seasons, unexpected losses, tough conversations, busy weeks, and moments of overextension. The goal isn't to become someone who never feels pressure, but to learn how to respond before pressure becomes overwhelming. Empowerment begins with self-trust, believing that your body's signals are meaningful, acknowledging that your exhaustion needs attention, recognizing that your peace is non-negotiable, understanding that your worth stays intact when you rest, accepting that your boundaries are reasonable, confirming that your healing is valid. You begin living differently as self-trust builds. You recognize old patterns more quickly. You notice when resentment tries to tell you something. You see when your mind slips back into harshness. You realize when your schedule becomes unsustainable. You respond before a crash occurs. This is what makes burnout recovery powerful. It is not just about getting better once. It's about becoming more aware of how you live, about building a relationship with yourself that stays active, listening, adjusting, protecting, and reinforcing what matters. There is also another aspect that develops here: leadership. Not just external leadership, but internal leadership too. The ability to handle your own life with more wisdom than fear, to be less reactive, less easily influenced by cultural pressure, less willing to mistake overworking for value, less willing to see self-abandonment as success. And from that place, your healing extends beyond yourself. When you stop glorifying burnout, you reshape what you model for others. When you set boundaries, you make them normal. When you rest without shame, you become proof that a different way exists. When you live with integrity about your energy, you quietly challenge systems built on exhaustion. That doesn't mean you have to become a teacher for everyone. It simply means your life begins to send a different message, one that says, I will not sacrifice my humanity to belong. I will not measure my worth by exhaustion. I will not call constant depletion ambition. I will not abandon myself to be easier to love. This is the deeper victory, not just feeling a little better, but you become harder to manipulate with guilt, urgency, perfectionism, or hustle culture. You become more grounded, more aware, and more complete. And when difficult seasons come again, as they will, you face them differently. You know how to bounce back. You know what supports you. You know what drains you. You understand what your body signals when it needs care. You know how to step back into alignment. That is empowerment, not invincibility. Wisdom in action. The burnout-proof life. You have made it through this journey, and that matters. Whether you listened with full attention or in fragments between the demands of daily life, something in you showed up for healing. Something in you was ready to hear a different message. Don't push harder. Don't try to prove more. Don't earn rest later. Instead, listen now. Care now. Change now. Burnout recovery isn't a single breakthrough moment. It's a way of living, a practice of returning to remember what your culture may have taught you to forget. That rest is productive. That boundaries are loving. That peace matters. That your body is wise. That your energy is precious. That your worth isn't measured by how much you can endure. You now have the map. Awareness, boundaries, regulation, mental clarity, physical restoration, joy, life design, and empowerment. These are no longer just abstract ideas, they are anchors, tools, choices, and doors you can keep walking through. There will still be tough days and moments when old habits beckon, times when urgency seems tempting and overgiving feels cozy, moments when your inner critic tries to take control once more. That doesn't mean you have failed. It means you are human. The work isn't slipping away. It's coming back faster, with more honesty and less shame. Return to your breath. Return to your boundaries. Return to your body. Return to what nourishes you. Return to what matters. Return to the version of yourself that no longer seeks a life built solely on depletion. A burnout-proof life doesn't mean perfection. It means living where your well-being isn't an afterthought. It means including your humanity in your schedule. It means ambition and peace coexist, not conflict. It means rest is part of the rhythm, not just a reward for collapse. You are allowed to live your way. You are allowed to protect your vitality. You are allowed to build a life that supports you. You are allowed to prioritize sustainability over self-sacrifice. You are allowed to become someone who doesn't wait for a breakdown to offer care. And perhaps most importantly, you are allowed to believe that healing is possible for you, even now, especially now. So, as this audiobook comes to an end, don't see it just as a conclusion. View it as a new beginning, a quieter one, a wiser one, a more honest one. The next step doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be simple. One boundary, one nourishing meal, one slower breath, one earlier bedtime, one honest conversation, one fewer apology, or one moment of asking yourself what you need and truly listening. That's how burnout releases its grip. Not just through understanding, but through action. Not only through awareness, but through commitment. Not simply through wishing for a different life, but through creating one. You don't need to become someone else to heal. You have to stop abandoning yourself. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this journey. And most of all, thank you for choosing, in whatever way you can today, to reconnect with yourself.